I'd like to ask a couple of questions to the experts, and thank you very much for coming in, and it's been extremely informative, about how we could leverage different types of testing in order to establish the green zones that we're talking about, which I think is more about finding out where the virus isn't as opposed to where the virus is. So the first of those questions would probably go to Professor Carney and Professor Staines. I wonder, has there been any consideration of the use of pool testing, whereby we test large numbers of samples, maybe 100 plus, and in any one go at any one time? It seems to me that you'd exponentially increase your capacity for testing, but it would also be very relevant for something like international air travel, where you might be able to test a full plane load at a time, and if you got an all clear, then you knew that plane load of people were in the clear. Also, in the meat industry, it'd be useful to be able to test on a factory-by-factory basis in that way. So I wonder if that's been given any consideration as part of your plans. And I suppose related, and Professor Mickey might be able to speak to this, considering there's a good deal of research happening in universities in I think Newcastle, Bangor and Edinburgh, which is around sewage epidemiology or wastewater testing. So I'm given to understand that it's possible to test for COVID within wastewater systems. And this might be able to give us an indication. For example, my own hometown of Tramore, you might be able to test and find that there's no COVID within that sewage system, that wastewater system, which would allow you to establish a green zone, which I think is one of the things that Professor Staines is driving at, beginning to establish green zones and then begin to merge them together as you find and eradicate the virus from different settings. So I wonder if any of the experts would like to give an opinion or a view on those testing techniques, whether they've been used or whether they think they would be relevant for an Irish context.
You do the first one, I'll do the second.
So in terms of the testing, certainly I think that needs to be part of the overall approach. And so it goes back a little bit, I think, in terms of the specifics or something that we need to figure out once we agree that this is at least a strategy that we're happy to adopt. And then we work with our population to figure out which parts of this and what the specific details of the different testing strategies. And I think Professor Staines is going to speak to the sewage question.
In terms of the sewage epidemiology, there is a project is seeking funding for that at the moment. We believe it's technically feasible, and we are waiting to hear if the reviewers think we're capable of doing it. In terms of pooled testing, there are technical issues about pool testing which I only dimly understand, but I gather that in many circumstances it is very useful, but it doesn't always work, and you would need to ask one of the testing experts further about that.
I wonder, would Professor Mickey be able to comment on the wastewater epidemiology, because I think it's been used in the UK.
Sorry, I'm a behavioural scientist, so it's not my area of expertise.
Okay, we'll accept that as an answer, I think. I was going to ask Professor Staines then, in the time remaining to me, how would you go about establishing your green zones where you'd essentially eliminated the virus from it when there's so much asymptomatic transition? Are we talking about, is it large mass testing that we're talking about, or is there I suppose, a less invasive way of going about establishing those green zones?
Mass testing of individuals is not feasible. We haven't got the resources to do it, and it is really an impractical step. I think we are stuck with identifying people who have symptoms. And I think it'll be very important, because the tests we use are about 70% accurate. So if someone has symptoms, even if their tests are negative, particularly now when influenza is rather low, we should be quite aggressive about saying, yeah, this person probably has COVID. And my clinical colleagues tell me the clinical picture is quite distinct. And chasing the contacts of that person. And it's the speed of chasing the contacts, identifying them, getting them to isolate, testing them, that is what brings this to zero. And we're doing it much faster than we were, but we're not doing it fast enough yet. There are too many people where it's taking too long to trace the contacts. And we are having a problem that some contacts decline to engage with testing. And I think that's partly about messaging and partly about changing people's behaviour, but also partly about reassuring people that, as Susan has articulated, that they won't lose money if they are tested and if they have to isolate, because that's a real concern and a very legitimate concern for many people.
Thanks very much.